Okay, so have you ever been looking for something on your computer?
Yeah, happens all the time.
Right. Like
Yeah.
that link, you saw earlier, but
Oh, yeah.
now it's gone. Like maybe you're looking at headphones, noise canceling ones.
I was literally just doing that yesterday, actually.
And going through your browser history is the worst.
The absolute worst.
So Microsoft's got this new thing, and it's either going to be amazing or kind of creepy.
Okay.
They're calling it Recall. It's part of Windows 11. And honestly, when I first read about it, it seemed a little too good to be true. Almost like something out of Back to the Future, but for your computer.
A digital time machine. I'm intrigued, but wary.
Yeah, and we're not the only ones. We've gotten some interesting reactions to this, by the way. One listener said they're switching to Linux because of this.
Whoa, that's a pretty extreme reaction. What's got them so spooked?
Privacy, mainly.
Yeah.
Which, fair point. But then you have Microsoft's official description of Recall, which makes it sound like a productivity miracle. We're going to sort all that out today.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack. So what exactly is Recall?
Okay, so expert speaker, you always explain this stuff way better than I ever could. So can you give us the breakdown? What's the tech behind all the hype?
So imagine instead of just bookmarking a website, your computer takes a snapshot.
A snapshot.
Yeah, like a digital Polaroid of what you were looking at.
Okay.
That's Recall, essentially. It's always taking these snapshots in the background, creating this timeline of everything you do on your computer. And we're not just talking websites here. Documents, apps, pretty much anything.
Okay, so it's like super powered browser history, but for your whole computer.
Exactly.
Doesn't that sound a little intense, though? Like Big Brother's watching, but it's Microsoft this time.
That's the big question, right? And we're going to dig into the whole privacy issue in a bit. But for now, what's important is this. Recall uses something called local storage and analysis. Basically, all of this is happening on your device. It's not being sent off to the cloud somewhere.
Okay, so it's like a really organized, but maybe a little nosy roommate living inside my computer.
Well, the tech behind it is actually pretty impressive. Microsoft says you need a Copilot Plus PC to even use it.
A Copilot Plus.
Yeah, which sounds like something straight out of Star Trek, but essentially it means your computer needs to be pretty powerful to handle all of this data capture and analysis.
So what are we talking here? Like a supercomputer just to run this thing?
Not quite a supercomputer, but you're looking at a minimum of 16 gigabytes of RAM, 8 logical processors, at least 256 gigabytes of storage.
Wow, so this isn't just like a little add-on to Windows.
No, this is heavy-duty stuff.
Okay, so if it takes that much just to run, imagine the kind of processing that's going on in the background, even when it seems like Recall is just passively taking screenshots or something.
Exactly.
So it takes some serious horsepower to run this thing. But specs aside, what's it actually like to use Recall? I mean, I read Microsoft's little blurb about finding a lost recipe, which, okay, fine.
Right.
But I have a feeling you found some cooler uses for it.
Oh, yeah. It's not just about finding a single file, it's the context. Let's say you're working on a project, and you remember reading something useful, but it was weeks ago.
The worst.
Instead of just searching keywords, it's like you're going back to that moment in time. Like you see the article you were reading, but also anything else you had open, maybe even drafts you were working on at the same time.
It's like having one of those things called breadcrumbs, but for your brain.
Yeah. Digital breadcrumbs.
No more of those I know I saw it somewhere moments.
Exactly. Or imagine you're a designer, right? And you need a specific color palette, one you saw once.
Get in there.
Recall lets you visually search through your past projects. No more scrolling forever.
Okay, I could have used that last week. See, this is already way more useful than finding a recipe. But what about just everyday stuff? Not everyone's a designer.
Okay, so how many times have you been talking to someone and you're like, what was the name of that?
All the time.
Or what was that movie our friend recommended? With Recall, you could scroll through your texts from that day, even if you don't remember the exact keywords.
Wait, are you saying this is the end of senior moments? And I'm not even a senior yet?
I might be too early to say for sure, but...
No more frantic texts to my friends remember that restaurant with the...
Right. It has the potential to change how we remember things. And since you mentioned being a big reader, imagine how it could change how we read.
Okay, now you got my attention. Tell me more.
You could recall not just the book title, but the exact line that stood out to you weeks later. Or grab quotes for an article without highlighting everything.
I mean, I love my dog-eared paperbacks as much as the next person.
Right.
But that kind of access to my past reading is, wow, that's something else.
And we're just scratching the surface here. Think about education, remote work, even just self-reflection.
Okay, so now we've gone from lost recipes to revolutionizing how we think and remember. And I know this is on everyone's minds.
I was just thinking that.
What about privacy? Local storage is one thing, but I bet our listeners, especially that one who's switching to Linux,
Yeah.
they're going to want to know, how secure is all this, really?
Yeah, I get it. It's one thing to have bookmarks and browser history, but this is your whole digital life we're talking about.
Right. It's kind of creepy if you think about it too much. All your memories, your work, your late-night online shopping sprees,
Yeah.
all just sitting there.
And with all the data breaches we hear about these days, it's natural to be concerned. Even with everything stored locally, how safe is it really?
That's what I'm wondering. What's stopping someone from just, I don't know, breaking into my computer and accessing all of this?
Well, that's where Microsoft's security features come in. Each of these snapshots that Recall takes, they're encrypted.
Encrypted. Okay, that's good.
Using Windows. Hello?
So my face is the key,
Yeah.
like in the spy movies.
Pretty much. Your face, fingerprint, or PIN, it's all linked. So even
Oh.
if someone got hold of your hard drive, they couldn't unlock your recall data without, you.
Okay, that does make me feel a little better, I've got to admit. I can barely remember my own passwords, let alone anyone else's. But what about the actual content of these snapshots? Does recall just capture everything? Like, even if I don't want it to?
Good question. See, Microsoft thought of that too. They have this thing called sensitive information filtering.
Catchy. What's that do?
It uses AI to actually prevent certain snapshots from being saved at all. Like if it detects things like passwords or credit card numbers on your screen.
So it's like a built-in sensor for my digital life.
Kind of, yeah. But, and this is important, all of that filtering, it's happening on your device. Microsoft isn't getting access to that. You're in control.
Okay, that's good to know. And what about control over specific websites or apps? Can I pick and choose what gets included in this whole recall thing?
Absolutely. You can exclude specific websites or apps. So yeah, if you're doing your online banking or maybe some late night online shopping you don't want to remember.
Oh, definitely excluding that.
You can make sure recall doesn't touch those sites.
So at the end of the day, it sounds like we've got more control than it might seem at first glance.
Exactly. Recall is all about giving you access to your digital past. It's not about forcing you to record and analyze everything. You're in the driver's seat.
That makes sense. But
Yeah.
still, this whole thing it makes you think about privacy and memory and what it means to have so much of our lives, even the parts we forget, so readily accessible.
It's a whole new world, isn't it? And as this kind of technology becomes more common, we're all going to have to figure out where we stand. What's the right balance for us between convenience and, like you said, control over our own digital lives?
That's a really good point.